What's going on, golf addicts? DB here to give you everything you need to know about TPC Southwind for the FedEx St. Jude Championship and nothing you don't in just under 15 minutes or less. I'm excited about it. Let's get to it. It's the first event of the FedEx Cup playoffs, and I've broken down all the course research. I've done all the stats, all the trends, all the data. I've run through, dozens of player quotes over the years, and I've narrowed it all down to give you everything you need to know if you're going to bet or play DFS this week for the FedEx St. Jude. All right, including a quote coming up here in just a second from a past champion here that says this is the hardest golf course he's ever played. Now, you said it back then. I don't know if you would agree with that now, but we'll get to that shortly. Let's get to the golf course, and I'm going to start off by showing you the scorecard. It's a pretty basic par 70, a little over 7,200 yards is our maxed out yardage here. You got two par fives on the course. Both are pretty scoreable. These guys are going to really have to get it done on the par fives this week. Guys tend to eat those up. The par threes, yeah, they're pretty mild as well for a PGA Tour, event. They're not all over, 200 yards. I mean, there's a couple of them that can play a little, they can stretch out a little bit, but it's not that bad. There's some, this is obviously more about par fours being a par 70, but that is your scorecard. Take a look. And just some basic course features. It was designed in the 80s, renovated in the 90s. It has hosted the St. Jude Classic for a long time, but most recently hosted the WGC version of the FedEx St. Jude from 2019 to 2021. Brooks Koepka, Justin Thomas, and Abraham Answer were your winners of those events. The course is pretty tight off the tee. There's a lot of water hazards on maybe 11 holes it plays. It plays a factor. And Southwind does hold the record for most water balls on the PGA Tour since 2015. A lot of water balls. The fairways are Zoysia, which if you've never played those, the ball really sits up just sits up on a tee for you. The greens are Champion Bermuda, pretty nice Bermuda grass. They're on the smaller side. They got some undulation, definitely have some grain. And the course and its conditions resemble an Eastlake and Craig Ranch, only just because of the Zoysia fairways and the Bermuda greens. More on Eastlake here in just a second when I get to a player quote. All right, let's look at some stats and trends. This is important stuff. This is really where we start to see what type of golf course this really plays out to be. According to Data Golf, TPC Southwind is in the top 15 most difficult courses on the PGA Tour since 2015. That is excluding majors. So similar to places like Colonial, Riviera, and Muirfield. So it's not a birdie fest, which is good. I don't want a birdie fest in my first event of the FedEx Cup playoffs. So it can get you. There are big numbers to be had out here, and you do have to kind of pick your spots. Some of these holes are not birdie holes. Some of them are, you got to be more aggressive, and a lot of them you have to play safe. TPC Southwind ranks within the top 10 since 2015 on the PGA Tour in number of penalty strokes. Obviously, that probably contributes a lot to how difficult the golf course plays. 11 holes with water in play will do that to you. So a lot of penalty strokes here at TPC Southwind. The approach shots really come from that mid iron range. If you look at approach shot distribution on the PGA Tour since 2015, this place doesn't produce a whole lot of short wedge shots like we saw at maybe Sedgefield. But it also doesn't produce a lot of long irons. Not a lot of guys hitting those 210, 215, 225 long irons into these par threes or as they approach par fours and par fives. TPC Southwind falls in the middle of the pack. This is off the tee, and this is important. Middle of the pack in terms of average driving distance at around 289 yards, as well as driving accuracy at around 65.5%. So driving distance, driving accuracy, it's pretty much average on tour. But I will say, I think last year or maybe in 2021, the average driving distance got up to like 292. It was a little longer. Obviously, it depends on conditions. There's some things that can play a factor there. But for the most part, you know, this is what it looks like. The fairways are among the top 10 most narrow on the PGA Tour at 29 yards on average, as well as the top 10 most penal when missing the fairways. So right off the bat, I think TPC Southwind is going to paint the picture that positioning yourself off the tee is most critical here. Having the ball in the fairway. These greens are small. They're smaller than average by square footage. They do have undulation, which makes them even smaller because the tiers you gotta land these golf balls into shrink the green size, right? And so if you're gonna do that, you have to control distance. You have to control your spin, and you can't do that in Bermuda rough. It's much easier to do that on these very nice, fluffy, sit up on a tee Zoysia fairways. So I think right off the bat, the thing to know is off the tee, you just got to be in the fairway. Now, listen, if you're a bomber and you're you can hit it long and straight, major advantage. But if you're a bomber and you can't hit it long, or you can hit it long, but you can't hit it straight, you might have to dial down. There's a couple of players that have talked about that in the past, including Dustin Johnson talked about having to dial back on driver a few holes. Whatever you got to do, put it in the fairway. Okay. I mean, Abraham Answer is a great example, a guy who won here at the WGC event, good at putting it in the fairway. The final stat or trend to know is it is near the top third on the PGA Tour since 2015 in terms of average green and regulation percentage at around 64.2%. That is similar to Torrey Pines South and Colonial. So in terms of hitting greens and reg, a little more difficult than what, maybe the courses we see leading up to this event. Um, Obviously, with it playing tighter off the tee, more penalty shots, more hazards, smaller greens. Greens and reg is not going to be it's not going to be as easy to do, but it is near the top third in terms of hitting greens and reg. So it's not a super difficult greens and reg course, but it ain't easy either. All that also means is like strokes gained around the green is probably going to come in play. We'll get to that more in just a second when I talk through my key stats. Also at the end, I'm going to tell you the course horses and the track hacks versus their strokes gained expectation at TPC Southwind over the years. You don't want to miss that. That's a great way to find maybe a diamond in the rough there. But I want you to do this for me. If you're enjoying the video so far, hit the like button, please. I should have like half the likes as I should have views. If 1,000 people watch this, there should be 500 likes. Like, I don't understand. Just hit the like button, please. Subscribe to the YouTube channel if you've not already. Hit the notification bell to let you know that we've got new videos dropping. We just dropped an amazing Harold Varner, the third interview that you don't want to miss. I promise you that. We got some good content on and upcoming on the Tour Junkies YouTube channel. And also comment this. We're in Memphis. It's Tennessee. I just got back from a wonderful country music concert. I heard Cody Johnson and Luke Combs, and I'm just feeling country right now. I'm wearing a tank top because it's hot as crap up here right now. I got air problems. But I want to know who your favorite country singer or artist or band of all time is. I got in kind of a 90s country zone the other day, and I was like binging Garth Brooks and Tim McGraw and Travis Tritt, like all those guys. So like, I'm just curious. Who's your favorite? Drop it in the comments. I'm interested. All right, let's continue. Looking at some player quotes, Justin Thomas said this: I find this place very similar to Eastlake, to where if you drive it well, if you hit the fairways, it's not a difficult course. You have a pretty good amount of short irons and some wedges to where you can control your distance into the greens. It's a place I think off the tee is extremely important because from there you can manage the course pretty well. When you get out of position, you're really just trying to minimize your damage and not make a big number. That's the quote from Justin Thomas. Quote from Dustin Johnson, quote, you've just got to hit it in the fairways and hit it on the correct side of the fairways. I don't get to hit a lot of drivers, but that's okay. The golf course is tough, and you've got to control your distance coming into the greens. End quote. That's DJ. All right, let's look at a couple more here. You got Brooks Koepka. Quote, there's a bunch of tough holes here. If you're going to put it in the rough out here, you're going to have some problems. And the Bermuda rough, it sits down. It could jump 40 yards, or it could come out dead, and you're right in the middle of the lake, dropping. It makes it very challenging. Yeah, you've got to just hit this. You got to hit fairways on this golf course. These greens are so good. Anything inside of 10 feet, you're expecting to make. You have so many wedges too. So if you can just drive it in the fairway, you're going to have a lot of good looks, end quote. And finally, from a guy who's won here twice, he won here in 2017, then defended again in 2018, Daniel Berger, quote, it's the hardest course I've ever played in my life. It's just extremely long and extremely penalizing. The greens are very slopey. You have 10 footers that break 4 or 5 feet. Speed control is going to be huge, and fairways. Now, the Brooks Koepka quote and the Daniel Berger quote is, kind of confusing because Brooks thinks you can drip everything in from 10 feet. Berger thinks you can't. Statistically, it's not that hard of a golf course to putt. So I think Berger could be fluffing himself up a little bit, having won here twice. I don't know what he's trying to do. Maybe he was, I don't know if back then he was jockeying for a Ryder Cup position or trying to impress his girlfriend, Tori Slater. I don't know what he was doing, but it's a little different than what we hear most of these guys talk about. All right, let's keep going. Let's look at one more player quote from Jordan Spieth. I think it's a really good golf course. I probably would have played here every year had it not been where it was on the schedule. So coming in, having played quite a bit over the last 6-7 months versus kind of the form I was in previous years, I'm excited to step up to this course. I really like the greens. They're kind of very similar to what I grew up on. So I like that kind of fast, slopey, grainy Bermuda. The course itself requires a lot of different shots off tees. You've got to work it both ways into a lot of different pins. It's just overall a really nice test where at par 70, you don't necessarily see scores go extremely low. And instead, you've got to really kind of pick where your chances come. It's one of those golf courses every year that you look forward to coming to where you don't necessarily have to be in a shootout, but instead, you've really got to golf your ball. So Jordan Spieth talking about working the ball both ways, talking about hitting fairways, talking about grainy, slopey, quick, undulating greens. All of that is important to remember. Now, I want to remind everybody this: the 72 hole course record at Southwind, it was held by Brooks Koepka and Abraham Ancer when they won the WGC the last 3 years. Sam Burns and Hideki Matsuyama also have the 72 hole record here, and the 18 hole record is a 61 at Southwind, held by Tom Lewis and a couple old farts that aren't here anymore. Um, Berger, like I said, won here. Sorry, Berger won here in 2016 and 2017. That's on me. That's on me. All right, so I think we're ready to get into some key stats, and let's pull that up, and some course horses and track hacks, and we'll be done. Key stats: strokes gained approach, strokes gained off the tee, strokes gained around the green. Three major strokes gained categories. I thought about going into like greens and red gained or something like that. I think strokes gained approach off the tee and around the green covers it. I will probably wait off the tee a little more than a lot of touts or a lot of handicappers will. I think that's very important here. So, however you get it done off the tee, I would love to have total drivers that both hit it long and straight right now. But even if you're not that, if you're just a short knocker who hits a ton of fairways and you gain a lot of strokes that way, I'll take that too. Opportunities gained in DraftKings scoring. If you're playing DraftKings, that's important. Opportunities gained is my favorite fantasy national proprietary stat, where if you hit it within 15 feet on or under green in regulation, that's considered an opportunity to gain a birdie. I want to know how well guys have been doing that recently to set themselves up to hit on these small tiered undulating greens and give them the best chance to make birdie. Recent form, obviously, we're looking at that. Long-term and short-term putting. I'll probably also look at Bermuda putting specifically, as this is very, typical grainy champion Bermuda. So I want to look at that. Also, I didn't put this in here, but strokes gained around the green on Bermuda surfaces, or on courses that are Bermuda tee to green might be worth a look, because chipping off of Bermuda is not easy. And guys who are more comfortable with it are probably going to do better at that. So I would look at other courses that have that situation. TPC Sawgrass comes to mind. East Lake comes to mind. Probably PGA National comes to mind. So anyway, bogey avoidance, with it not being a shootout or a birdie fest, like Jordan Spieth said, and the winning score, not getting to 20 under, and all the water hazards and all the penalties. I think bogey avoidance and even maybe double bogey avoidance could be worth weighting in your model for sure. And obviously, Southwind record. We've got a lot of history here. I think it's worth looking at. I don't know how much I'm going to really weigh in course history, but I think it's a thing that I want to know and I want to look at. Speaking of course history, I'm going to end this with course horses and course hacks. Be sure and check out the Nut Hut if you haven't already. There's a link in the description. The Nut Hut is popping. Whether it's football season and golf is slowly dying, it doesn't matter. We got sharp people in the Nut Hut helping people win a lot of money during the peak PGA Tour season and when it's not PGA Tour season. $10 a month, $90 a year. The Nut Hut is the greatest place. Come join hundreds of other people. Get in the community on Discord. The link is in the description in the podcast and on the YouTube channel. We'd love to have you there for our Wednesday night live chats with me and Pat and the gang. It's a great time. Promise you can cancel at any time. Just get in there and try it out one time. Try it out for 1 month. I promise you won't regret it. If you get in there and you hate it after 1 month and you want to cancel, I'll refund you your 1 month. No problems asked. Just no questions asked. Email us at info@tourjunkies.com if you want to do that, and we'll refund you that 1 month. All right. Here we go. Course horses. Now, I got to give this caveat. This is a data golf specific piece of information. This is strokes gained at TPC Southwind versus their expectation. So versus what kind of player they are and how they've gained strokes on other golf courses. These are the top 12, minimum of 12 rounds at TPC Southwind. So I threw out guys who have less than 12 rounds. I want 12 rounds, a decent sample size at TPC Southwind. 12 rounds or more. These guys do better at Southwind versus their expectation. Okay. Berger is number one, Justin Thomas two, then Hideki, then Rory, then Shane Lowry, then Matt Fitzpatrick, then Chez Reavie, then Jason Day, then Jordan Spieth, then Webb Simpson. Now, there's some really good players here, really big names here. Obviously, those guys do really well almost anywhere. Chez Reavie and Jason Day surprise me. All right, I got to hustle up because we're almost at 15 minutes. Track hacks, same stipulation versus expectation, minimum of 12 rounds. Here's who sucked here. Sung Kang sucked the most. Then Max Homa. Then Keegan Bradley. Then Lucas Glover. Luke List. Johnny Vegas. Gary Woodland. Martin Laird. Brian Harmon. And Russell Knox. Those are the worst here. The track hacks versus expectation at TPC Southwind with a minimum of 12 rounds. And that is the breakdown for TPC Southwind. Hope you enjoyed it. Like the video, comment your favorite country music singer, artist, band, whatever. Subscribe to the video, rate us on Apple, on Spotify, and get in the Nut Hut. All right. And let's have a great week. Let's have some green screen disease and let's bend over your bookie. See ya.